Welcome to the second installment of Sample Rolls. In today's video, we will be taking a look at the latest film from CineStill, the 400D. Right away you might think D stands for daylight, but in this particular case it stands for dynamic. CineStill's website describes it as a fine-grained daylight balanced, color-negative film that delivers a soft color palette with natural saturation and rich, warm skin tones. The name dynamic comes from the wide dynamic range of the film, with CineStill saying it can be rated from 200 to 800 ISO without having to push it, and even being able to handle up to 3200 if you were to push it. This makes it a highly versatile film in both outdoor and indoor situations, whichever you may need. Like other CineStill films, it is safe for regular C41 processing at your local lab. It also features the signature CineStill look of halations. For those less familiar with that concept, I will link an article explaining what it is and how it happens. It will be in the description. But for now, all you really need to know is that really blown highlights will show a red glow. This is something you are likely to experience in night photography, for example, on intense sources of light like street lamps, but could also occur during the day if your sky is really overexposed. Alright, this is actually a lot of information to begin with. Let's get back to the main purpose of this video, basically showing you the conditions in which I shot this new film. Well, it's not so new anymore, but you know what I mean. I shot the roll over 3 to 4 outings between November and December. The first one was suburban night photography. You won't see too much video footage of that just because it's nighttime and my phone's not so great, so it's not ideal for it. But I'll have the pictures up on the video for sure. They are some of my favorites of that roll actually. Then later that month, I did a quick trip to Carlingford with my friends Alex and Kieran. Carlingford is a coastal town a bit over an hour north of Dublin. This is where you'll see the coastal footage with the mobile homes, the beach, and the golden hour from the intro. I think they're probably some of the scenes I really like to shoot in for that roll. It was a really nice place to be. Then there's a few other random pictures here and there through December when there was a rare snowfall in Dublin. And then also the Ireland Analog Monthly Photo Walk. So there's a few portraits and pictures of the city for that. I ended up finishing the roll on an afternoon in Dunleary Harbour, which was also during golden hour. These are mostly photographs of boats and a bit of the skyline and the harbour around there. You'll see as well there's a bit of footage from that. Now I'll go through some of my initial impressions, which are mostly positive. I'll say it's really nice to see a company producing like a new film, especially 400 speed, color negative film. This is just great. It's always nice to have a new option to use. Then I really liked the color range. I thought especially the greens went really nice. The yellows, again, I mentioned earlier, would have liked to try a few different colors in my shoots. I'll keep that in mind for next time, but overall really happy with the color range. It handled the lighting conditions quite well. Really no complaints from that side. I was not sure how much I would like or dislike halations. It's typically not something I'm really into, especially for daytime photography. I found there was not nearly as much halation for daytime pictures as I expected. I found on that side it was good. Now, one neutral point, and this is kind of a personal opinion, it's a bit grainy. It's not overly grainy. Grain is definitely present. I don't mind a bit of grain. It didn't bother me too much, but it's definitely present. Now, for the negative points, again, I think these are personal preferences. Doesn't mean these points will bother you. The first one for me was halations. I already briefly talked about it. I'm not a huge fan of halations for daytime pictures. I think that would probably be the main reason why this would not regularly be in my fridge. That's probably number one. The second negative point would be the price. Back in October 2022, I paid €26 for this one roll of 35mm, effectively making it the most expensive roll I've ever purchased so far. Keep in mind, this is compared to even before Kodak raised their prices, and even now, after Kodak raised their prices a few times, this is still €6 more expensive than a roll of Kodak Portra 400. There's probably a few reasons for that price. The first one being that this roll was part of the initial first batch that arrived in Ireland. Maybe that has anything to do with the price. And the other one simply because Ireland tends to have higher price for film than mainland Europe. That being said, I've recently seen rolls of CineStill 400D in 35 for €20 now, which is a bit more in line with what we see for other 400 speed film. And for the last negative point, I found it can be very warm in some cases. Now, there's a few reasons for that. First of all, I didn't scan it myself. Maybe if I did, I'd have more control. If you're scanning your own film, you'll probably be able to work around that a little bit. With the scans I had, there's a few pictures that were quite warm and the look was heavily baked in. There was not so much I could do in post to kind of counterbalance it. I think on those specific images, probably the lighting conditions were not on my side as well. You'll see pictures from the intro, for example. We're looking at yellow and brown, grass and mobile homes during golden hour, so obviously it's quite sunny and warm, but I found with the film the look was fairly baked in and there was not that much information besides yellow and brown. Looking at the video footage from my phone, for example, as comparison, I know it's not a fair comparison necessarily, but I found there was a bit more to play with in terms of color range. People might really like that look. For me, it was a bit heavy in those cases. This is not something I saw across the board, but really, yeah, in very already warm situations, it was maybe slightly overly warm to my taste. There's a really good article by the Darkroom on that topic if you're interested. They have a nice setup where they use the same camera and lens, and they've shot both CineStill 400D and CineStill 800D, and you can use a slider to kind of see, I guess, not before and after, but you can compare the two results really easily with the slider. 800D is definitely on the cooler side of the spectrum in terms of film warmth, and 400D might be on the other side where it's quite warm, so there's a fairly drastic difference between the two, but you can still see as a side-by-side, how they rendered the scene, and it's quite interesting. So yeah, if you're interested, I'll also have a link in the description of the video for that article. Alright, so let's dive into Lightroom and see some of my favorite images from the roll. You'll be able to see all the rest of the images at the end of the video, but for now, let's focus on my favorites. This is one of the suburban areas I went to shoot a little bit. We can see it's quite warm for a night picture, but I really like how it brought especially the yellows and almost lime green tints in the top window. It's quite nice, and we can see the plant a little bit, and we can see the light is kind of diffused through the window. You can also see some of the details through the door, which is quite nice. And then there's that subtle halation there. This is nice, it adds a bit of a touch, but it's not too much. Now, moving on, next we have another one I really enjoyed. This one is from Carlingford. It's just this telephone box outside of a parking lot. I really like kind of the balance of the picture. Obviously the focus is on the phone booth, but you have that really nice palm tree on that side, and then on the left side you have this other building in the background. You have that little green fence with the side light, and I think my favorite thing about that image specifically is the greens. The grass is this really nice green. We have a darker forest green for the fence, and also that interior of the phone booth, which is quite nice. It's also sort of repeated across the street on that side of the roof, so it's kind of a nice reminder of those same tones. Then you have that bush that's a bit more of a warmer green. You have some really nice yellows for the tall grass, and again, nice green for the palm tree. So I think this one, for me, it's really about the colors. The composition is nice and simple, but the colors quite nice. Moving on here to the next, we have this picture of a mobile home. This one, again, one of my favorites from the roll. I'll probably say that because I'm actually reviewing my favorites of the roll, but So this one here, I actually really like. We have a bit of different colors. Again, it's one of the only ones where I have some proper blue, and I thought that's rendered quite well. We can see here, actually that's a good one for the grain. We can see it's not overpowering or anything, but it's definitely present. That mobile home's a nice yellow. Again, I thought the orange fits quite nice. We have the fence compositions, again pretty simple, straight, well not straight on, but facing at a slight angle. We have the foreground here that's out of focus. We have that fence, and then the building in the back. We have that nice golden hour side light, which hits the grass with green and a bit yellow and oranges. So I quite like that. One of the ones I mentioned earlier that we don't have too much colors because of how warm it is this one. Now we fully get the side light from the golden hour. We have a lot of yellow grass already to begin with, and I can't quite remember how that house looked, but it looks like it's fairly brown or yellow. So that makes for a very brown and yellow scene. But again, I found, looking at the video clips, which I will be playing now, there's a bit more than just that yellow and green, that yellow and brown, and I would have loved to have a bit more of that, especially in the sky here. You can see it's maybe slightly blown out. There's a bit of orange on those. I think this is an electric cable. Yeah, I would have liked, I don't know, maybe a bit darker, and then even the sky has a bit of that quite orange, maybe almost even purple. So I would have liked maybe something a bit more neutral there. I have a few here night photos I wanted to show. Again, very green, no halations in that case, but nothing too special. This one here, I think we see, well, we do see definitely, I like the green. I'm not sure what type of light was hitting the building, but it definitely looks more green than it did in, with my own eyes. Then we have the halation here on the for sale sign, and probably even, I think, influences some of the windows here. We can see it a little bit at the bottom one. The top one, not as much, but I don't think it was that orange, so there might be a slight influence there. Now another night photo. This one I particularly like for the colors as well. That's kind of a recurring theme, but I really like that electric pole here with the cables. I find, especially seeing them lit up, maybe not those ones as far back, but the ones close to the source of light are really lit up, and they make them pop a little bit and kind of cut in the sky. I like there's a few stars, and we have a really dark blue in the sky. It's not fully black, there's still a tiny bit of color, and I think that really plays well with highlighting that halation there. It makes, some nice contrast between the blue and the red and orange. It's also nice that the halation is in front of the black roof. It makes that pop a little bit more. And I also like the distinction that it's, we have the white spot where the light is, then a bit of yellow, gradually orange, and then red. I think this looks quite cool. Then we have a really, the bottom frame is really all yellow from that light, which is a nice contrast from the sky, almost half and half split in the middle. Now I'll go quickly here. That's one from the snowfall. Quite nice to see the range of colors again. We've got some nice greenery, we've got the snow on the ground that's in the shade, not blown out obviously, so that was nice to see. Nice yellows in the tree, and barely a bit of blues in the sky. Alright, next up, this other one from Dunleary. This is a few parked boats, probably for the season, I don't really know. This one I like because there's a bit of light and shadows and a few different colors in. We can see here, first of all, there's Dunleary Harbor with a few details. I like this, it kind of gives some context to the image. Then we have the really nice orange of the rust, some darker blue of this boat or whatever this thing here is. Then probably the only dark blue I have properly on that roll is from this boat. Looks very nice. Same thing for that green and the yellow here. There's some slight halations here from the light shining on the white parts of the boats and a few of the metal poles, but it's still a little bit discreet. It's there, but it's not overpowering anything. Maybe slightly more present there. You don't see the halation as much, but there's definitely some sort of glow here on the white poles. Overall, yeah, nice balance of colors, nice balance of lights and shadows. I think this is interesting. Alright, well, that mostly wraps up what I had to say about CineStill 400D. Again, just to quickly recap, I think this is a really nice film. Good colors, halations are not really for me, but besides that, I think it's pretty fantastic and versatile film. For the rest of the video, I'll leave you with the gallery of images from that first roll. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.